Thank you very much. So welcome to this meeting of the Cabinet. The Chief Executive and I are accessing this meeting remotely from the LGA conference in Harrogate. Other Cabinet members are present in the room, making up a quorum, and we also have some other councillors joining our meeting remotely. I will now check that those who are remote can hear us and we them. So first of all, is Councillor Tyler joining us remotely?
No, we have apologies from Councillor Tyler. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, John. Councillor Harvey?
Yes, Leader, I can see and hear you.
Thank you. Commercial Democratic Services, if I've missed anybody, please do let me know. In the room, we have Councillor Harrington, Councillor Toynbee, Councillor Chowns, and Councillor Davis. Thank you. So Cabinet Support Members, Councillor Hardwick, can you see?
Good afternoon, Leader. I can see and hear you, but unfortunately I cannot get my camera to work.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bartlett?
Yes, Leader, I can see and hear you. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hay?
We have apologies from Councillor Hay as well. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. And Councillor Ginman?
We have apologies from Councillor Ginman, who's away.
Thank you very much. So group leaders or their representatives and scrutiny chairs. First of all, Councillor James.
He sends his apologies, Leader. This is Councillor Howells, that he will try and join us, but if not, I can offer some comment on his behalf.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Howells. Councillor Leicester.
Yes, thank you. I can see you and hear you.
Thank you, Councillor Matthews.
Yes, I'm in the room. Actually, I can see and hear you, Leader.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Matthews. Councillor Fagan sends her apologies, and we have Councillor Milne in her place, and he is in the room. I think, is that right? Councillor Milne? Oh no, Councillor Milne is remote as well. Can you hear and see me, Councillor Milne? His head is down. Councillor Milne, can you hear and see me? No? We'll take another go at the end. Councillor Wilding.
Yes, Leader, thank you. I can see and hear.
Thank you. Councillor Howes has mentioned you. Councillor Swinglehurst sends her apologies. Councillor Stark. Councillor Stark, you able to see and hear? No, I don't see him on the screen. Councillor Balderson. I guess it's partly because of the new committees we have, haven't we? Councillor Balderson's not available at the moment. Okay, so we also have a number of officers attending who will be introduced as they are called upon. Can I just check that Councillor Milnes can see and hear? No, we'll take it as we come. So if the technology works, I hope to chair all of this meeting. If it does not, then I will try to hand over at the appropriate time to my Deputy Councillor Harvey. So thank you. I will now formally open this meeting. The agenda papers and other relevant information for this meeting are available for public viewing on the Herefordshire Council website. The Council is streaming this meeting live on the Herefordshire Council YouTube channel and making a recording. To ensure that recording quality is maintained, please speak as clearly as possible and keep background noise to a minimum. Microphones should be muted when you're not speaking. Please ensure that mobile phones and other devices are turned to silent. Others are permitted to film, photograph and record our public meetings, provided that it does not disrupt the business of the meeting. As we move through the agenda, in addition to discussion by Cabinet members, I will invite group leaders or their representatives where appropriate to provide views and questions from their group on each item. Where appropriate, I will also call on scrutiny chairpersons to comment on behalf of their committee. Voting will be undertaken by a show of hands in the room. Only Cabinet members physically present in the room may vote, which means, of course, that I cannot vote. So item 1 of the agenda, apologies for absence. I don't know whether the clerk has picked up all the apologies.
I think so, Chair. Yep.
Thank you very much. There are no others. Item 2 is the minutes of the, declarations of interest. Are there any Schedule 1, Schedule 2 or other interest for items on the agenda today? I see none. So moving to item 3, minutes to approve and sign the minutes of the meeting held on the 26th of May. No matters of accuracy have been notified to the monitoring officer. Cabinet members in the room, are you content that the minutes are an accurate record?
David, I have notified a matter of accuracy to Governance Services in relation to the listing of who was in the room. There are some textual errors, so I'm sure that's being updated.
Thank you, Councillor Chowns.
And Leader, if Councillor Milne's rejoined us, if you want to test his connection.
Thank you, Councillor Milne. Are you able to hear and see me? Councillor Milne? Oh, we'll try again a bit later, Councillor Harvey. Thank you. So the next item is to, well, first of all, I suppose, those in the room, we have enough votes in favour of the minutes being approved. If someone could confirm that for me, I'd be grateful.
Yes, subject to amendment.
Thank you very much. Subject to that amendment, yeah. Item 4, to receive any questions from members of the public. We've received 2 questions from members of the public for this meeting, and a response to each has been published as a supplement to the agenda papers. Those members of the public who have submitted questions have an opportunity to submit a written supplementary or to join the meeting to ask their question live. I will now ask the clerk to confirm if a supplemental question is to be asked for each of the 2 questions. First of all, from Mr. Stephen Kerry. Any supplemental question to that one?
Yes, Chair. Mr. Kerry's in the room.
Okay. Mr. Kerry, would you like to ask your question? Thank you.
Thank you. I understand the Cabinet members wish to distance herself from the past, but to focus on the here and now, we've had serious structural timber failings due to spreading dry rot for several years. Urgent repairs were first promised 2 years ago, and given the confirmation that the Council has appropriate revenue and capital budgets to fund the repair and maintenance of all its assets, and the fact that these works were promised well in advance of any transfer of the building, what month of the year can we expect to see those essential and overdue works going ahead?
Councillor Davis, I don't know whether you're in a position to answer as specifically as Mr. Kerry is asking. Do let us know what you can say.
Yeah, of course. I think it's probably best to get a written answer to Mr. Kerry. Okay,
thank you very much. So, Mr. Kerry, yes, we'll let you have a written answer to that. Item 5 is to receive any questions from councillors. There are no questions from councillors. So
we have the other supplementary.
Oh, my apologies. Oh, Mr. Mackay, I'm sorry about that. Mr. Mackay, is there a supplemental question from Mr. Mackay?
Yes, Chair, that was received in writing, so I'll read it out for you.
Thank you.
It's addressed to me, thanks.
Okay, I'll just see if I can share it on the screen for you as well. There with. Hopefully everybody can see that. So it says, it is some time since the list of anomalies identified by yourselves was viewable online, it being taken offline being considered to be a working document. And I ask if you still have that information, which together with an evidence base setting out how the records were originally compiled, helping to put matters into context, will be made available as part of this process.
Councillor Harrington, are you able to answer that supplemental?
Sort of struggling slightly to understand the question. I think I understand it. But I think what Mr. McKay is asking is that the work that we have done in preparing and receiving anomalies or looking at applications for entering onto the definitive map, etc. If we've got those records, we have. Obviously, we've now had the 2026 date repealed, so fortunately local authorities don't have to try and do all this work before 2026, which would have been impossible. Yeah. And I'm very grateful for members of the local access forum that helped us write to George Eustace, and actually for our MP, Jesse Norman, for his intervention in being able to do something towards getting that repealed. I think what he's saying is, once again, a resource issue. We said we would look at everything we've got, but we wouldn't necessarily get through it all because we have to identify resource, but we have the information, and I'm sure that can be made available, to the public. So I'll get back with a more clear written answer and perhaps go back to Mr. McKay. Mr. McKay just asking exactly what he's asking. I'm not entirely sure. I've probably got the gist of it, but yeah, I'll get back to him with the written response.
Thank you, Councillor Harrington. I'm sure if the response isn't clear, Mr. McKay will be back to us. So thank you.
We'll get back to him.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on then to item 6. So we have today 2 really significant items on the agenda, particularly significant in terms of capital spend and looking forward with these economic opportunities. I'm not going to labour a big introduction. I am sure that the Cabinet members will be more than keen to present these. So the first item is the Levelling Up Fund bid submission to government, which is one of the reasons why we've had to move the date of this meeting so that we can fit in the appropriate time scales before submitting things to government. So Councillor Chowns, over to you.
Thanks very much, Leader, and thank you all, colleagues. So the Council intends to submit 3 Levelling Up Fund bids to government by the deadline of 2nd of July, very soon, totalling roughly £43.6 million. So under the rules of the Levelling Up Fund, we're able to submit 1 bid per MP constituency. So that's 2 bids for Herefordshire, plus 1 transport bid. Now, Herefordshire has been identified as a priority 1 area, highest priority for this round, reflecting the local economic circumstances following the impact of COVID-19. So we're very hopeful that our proposals here will get support from the government. Our local MPs have an opportunity to express support for 1 bid, and both Jesse Norman and Bill Wigan have broadly expressed support for the proposals, subject to seeing the final bid documents. So a bit of background: government launched the Levelling Up Fund in March with the technical guidance that came out in mid-April. So we've had only about 10 weeks to develop detailed full business cases for these projects, and they need to be able to commence implementation this financial year and be concluded by March 2025. So those are really tight timescales, and those tight timescales have really severely restricted, if I'm honest, what the council is able to bid for. And so we've been driven more in developing these proposals by what schemes can meet the criteria within those timescales. There are other longer term prioritisation, priority projects and needs for the county, but unfortunately they weren't eligible for this particular round of funding. Now, in order to assist with development of the bids, we appointed external consultants, CBRE, to lead on the constituency bids, and WSP to lead on the transport bid. And I'm going to ask my colleague John to say a bit about the transport bid in a minute. That extra specialist capacity and quantity surveyors to develop the detailed cost plans and so forth has really been needed in order to get the bids to the level of proposition required. Government allocated an amount of funding to the council, £125,000, to support the bid development. And those consultants undertook a really extensive review of all of the possible projects that could be submitted. And for the constituency bids in particular, we had a real focus on the market town investment plans that Cabinet approved in March. We used those as the starting point, looking through all of those plans, all of those project ideas and proposals to see what would be eligible for this particular funding round. And that review concluded that the projects that I'm about to go through have the ability to meet the criteria of the fund and meet the March 2025 delivery deadline, subject to our decision today. Now, in recognition of the challenging timescales for this, for coming up with these, for presenting these proposals to government, we did something new this time. We included the chair and vice chair of the scrutiny panel in the working up of the proposals. So, really to make sure that there was that opportunity for for input from across the council and from the scrutiny side. And we offered a briefing to all members, all councillors before the papers were issued as part of the political group consultation process. So that's ensured that all members have had an opportunity to feed into this. So I'll just briefly explain our proposal. So first of all, the constituency bids. The southern bid, the key focus here is the first phase development of Model Farm on the outskirts of Ross-on-Wye, the Ross Enterprise Park. It's a much needed addition. It'll provide much needed additional employment land, and the project is designed for this levelling up fund. It'll establish 6 development ready plots and provide access to the much larger site, which offers longer term opportunities for both employment land and housing development there. So it'll generate 7 hectares of serviced employment land in an area where there's real demand for that. And we know through the multi-term investment plan process that there really is the demand for this. 16,000 square metres of additional employment floor space, significant land value uplift, 1,250 net additional jobs in the local economy, estimated increase in gross value added in the local economy of nearly £200 million over the next 10 years. So really, really significant economic impacts from this proposal, which, as I said, has strong support from the MP. The Northern constituency bid focuses on 3 linked projects, enhancing the public realm in Ledbury and in Leicester. So in Ledbury, they'll be completing the landscape at the Master's House, and in Leicester, extending the public realm improvements that we've already begun as part of the Heritage Action Zone. So these are really complementary projects to work that's already been done, but further developing them to create really excellent multifunctional public spaces in both of those market towns. And then the third project is led by Leicester Town Council, and it involves redevelopment of the Grade 2 Priory, which is going on an asset transfer to the Town Council at the moment, to provide a wider range of public services and managed workspace. So we'll create 450 square metres of new business incubator space at the old Priory. The Grade 2 listed building will refurbish it, estimated to support another roughly 50 jobs. We'll create new self-catering visitor accommodation in Leicester. It's a place that really needs more accommodation, and developing, really significant amounts of improved public space across both Ledbury and Leicester town centres, including a new pedestrian priority space in Court Square in Leicester, facilitate much larger markets and seasonal events and so forth, and similarly around the Master's House in Ledbury. So altogether, we'll be improving the setting of historic buildings and the heritage offer of both of those town centres and their conservation areas. The idea with these is that they'll lead to increased footfall and visitor spend in these town centres, sustain their unique independent retail and food and drink offer, help to grow the evening economy and really kind of improve the visitor economy in these places, as well as enabling more town centre events, supporting the pride that we already have in those market towns. I'd really like to pay tribute, particularly to the role of Leicester Town Council in enabling the Leicester bids. They put in a lot of groundwork, and as I've said, they're going to be taking on the old Priory asset transfer. So, that's been really important, that partnership working between town councils and Herefordshire Council, and the work that all of the market town stakeholders put into the market town investment plans that has provided a framework that we've been able to use as a starting point for developing these projects. I'd like to hand over to John now, who will be able to explain a bit more about the transport package that we're putting forward under Levelling Up Fund.
Indeed, I will. Thank you, Councillor Chance. I'll also mention perhaps a bit about the public realm in Leicester, which is part of the North bid. So we're very grateful for the Levelling Up funding opportunity. The one thing I would just sort of say is it's sometimes a pity that we seem to get funding at short notice, and that we have to kind of try and turn it around at short notice. Capital is fantastic, but revenue is king. What we would always appreciate, and we hope to going forward we'd get that opportunity, is a little bit more revenue to be able to resource our officers, to put plans in place, to really consider what strategically we should be doing within the county, in our market towns and our city and our villages. We have put that in place with the arrival of David Bucker through some funding that we have identified ourselves. So I'm confident that moving forward, we will have perhaps more to put forward for consideration when these kind of bids come along. I do want to thank Councillor Charles for bringing in the market town investment plans, because actually now every single market town in our county has a plan. We have identified projects, we have identified a strategy, we're working through that, and that's exactly the kind of resource and kind of planning that we will need. And it means that when we have future opportunities to bid for capital bids, we have some good plans on offer. In relation to Leicester, so the Corn Square, this is as part of the Heritage Action Zone. The Corn Square improvements is one part of the 3 bids in the north, and that's going to be basically vastly improving the surfaces in Corn Square, in High Street, and then we will be adding to that our own money that we put forward for the market town transport plan, so that we can make improvements around West Street. Streets in the cities and the towns tend to suffer because of the sort of scarcity of funding. We tend to rank them more lowly because of low speed, so they suffer on the general funding. So this is a really fantastic opportunity to do some restorative and some really good schemes. And I do want to thank the Leicester Town Councillors and also the Leicester Ward Councillors for the work that they've done on this. That the amount of work they did has made it, once again, provided us something that we could get behind, particularly, as I said, at short notice when we need to come up with schemes. So that was fantastic that was up and running, and we encourage that kind of collaborative working through all our parish and town councils, and I know they're all doing that. In terms of the south bid, the major sort of input is going to be around the transport hub. As we all know, the transport hub was part of the Heritage City Centre transport package, but unfortunately the budget for that of 40 million was pretty much swallowed up in land purchase and building of a road, leaving us with very little to deliver the transport hub, which was supposed to be a significant element, or the improvements to Commercial Road, Newmarket and Blue School Street. However, we have been able to design to quite a high standard, to quite an advanced stage, a very good design for the train station. We've had stakeholder sessions with all our bus operators, with our rail operators, with other stakeholders, taxi drivers, members of the public pressure groups, and we have a design that is a very good standard, I think, which will still have the ability for us to make some changes if we need within that. But that's going to be fantastic. It's going to look fantastic, and we hope therefore that is something that really has an opportunity to be delivered, because we were going to have to try and find the money from somewhere. So that is really, really good news. And then there's some other interventions in relation to adding to schemes that we already have going. We would want to make the cycle route up Elston Hill and Commercial Road much more significant, segregated. We want to make improvements for bus priority along Blue School Street and Newmarket Street, and that might be at junctions. That might be in relation to looking to sort of have some lane space specifically for buses. We have some very good routes already planned, the quiet routes in the south of the city. So as well as having the Home Lacey Cycleway, which we're having to go back and improve because it wasn't put in as a segregated cycle lane, which has led to problems. And in fact, it's meant it's been slightly probably abused. Actually, it's been used as a car parking sort of space on many parts of that route. So we'll be putting in what's LTN 120, a properly compliant segregated route along there to really help our workers down at Robworth to get there and back, and our residents to get there and back. That part of the city is so close to the town and so close to other residential areas that we really need to be giving people the opportunity to cycle safely and quickly. The other part of that is the quiet routes, which is the work that we did in looking at routes that already existed and desire lines that people use down streets or down a path, and making those better, improving the junctions, segregating them where we can as well. So that's fantastic. We've then got the Safer Routes to School initiative. This is something that's been very important to a lot of people. We all know in Hereford that transport issues that we have are very much alleviated when we have school holidays. That's something we should have looked at a long, long time ago before we thought of necessarily other measures which cost a lot more money. Unfortunately, the government withdrew funding for things like school travel plans a long time ago, This will give us the opportunity to work with schools for some funding. We had a fantastic response from the head teachers conference at the 3 counties a few weeks ago. We've already had several schools volunteer to be used in the pilot trials. And this would allow us to really give resource to schools to come up with decent travel plans. And this might involve having schools where we didn't allow parking. We had traffic-free streets where we didn't allow parking within the vicinity of the school, which I'm sure would please residents as well as pleasing the school teachers and school staff, which would mean that we would, give an opportunity for people to plan better and to make sure that we didn't have the mad rush and we didn't have the congestion, and we improved safety around school zones. The final thing probably is that we've already committed to looking at 20-mile-an-hour zones throughout the entire county, particularly in the city, the towns, and what we're calling significant settlements. This will give us capacity in Hereford itself, because this is a Hereford bid, to spend some of this money on the Hereford offer and to spend more of our own money that we've allocated through the decisions we took last year on measures in our market towns and also in our significant villages. The work that we will do here, we'll be looking at trying to zone areas which are, 20-mile-an-hour, and we will. There's a lot of work to be done on that, but this will help significantly with that. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Councillor Harrington, Councillor Chowns. I don't know whether any other cabinet members wish to add anything in the room. Does anybody wish to? No. Okay. Well, with the long introduction we've had, actually, Councillor Harvey.
Yeah, I mean, I'm cabinet member for finance, and therefore, obviously, I'm really pleased with the opportunity that we have to make these substantial bids. I'd like to take this opportunity to join Councillor Chowns in congratulating our officer team for what was an absolutely, amazing job under extremely tight timescales to pull together these bids. I share Councillor Harrington's voiced frustration at the short period of time that these levelling up bids have been given by the government process in order to meet the timetable. When you think that each one of these bids had the potential to be of the size of the Stronger Towns bid, which we'll come on to talk about later on in the agenda. And we've had over a year to work up the proposals for that bid. And, we've had not much longer than about, 6-8 weeks to do 3 bids, of the same size, with extremely tight delivery timetables. We have to have these completed by the end of 2025. So, it may be labelled levelling up, but it's a mountain to climb in actually responding to these bids in this government process. So I'd really like to put a plea in for more realistic timeframes for these sorts of bids in future. To get the very best value for money and to be able to bid for the maximum that we're allowed to. It really does take time, because the government, quite rightly, is expecting us to have done a lot of planning, to be able to have designs and drawings and done a lot of background work, and you can't just pull that out of a hat like a rabbit. So representing a ward in the northern constituency of the county, and being the ward member for the town centre in Ledbury, where the Master's House is located, I'm really pleased to be able to support that as part of the northern constituency bid. I'm disappointed that we're not able to bid to the maximum on the northern constituency programme. It would have been fantastic for us to have had the time to develop the plans to bring forward pieces of work in the big villages or in the in each of the market towns in the constituency. But unfortunately, the the opportunity just wasn't there for us to do that. So I'm pleased that the background work had been done on the Master's House project, and also really supportive of the Leicester project. And it's fantastic that, you know, the positive approach that's been taken by Leicester Town Council over a number of years, working with the local authority to undertake asset transfers and to put grant bids together for external funding, is really paying dividends. And well done to the town councillors and the ward councillors involved in doing that, because you really have served your community well, and it's enabled us to be able to extend that core funded project with the bid that we're putting forward here. So that's really fantastic. So I'm pleased at county level that we've got these opportunities. I've got my fingers and toes and legs and arms and everything crossed that, you know, we get through the assessment process at the government end of things. And you know, I'm really pleased that we've got you know, the support from stakeholders and from our MPs in helping to make this happen. Good news.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. I think then I'll move on to the group leaders, and Councillor Howes, you've offered to take the place of Councillor James. So a bit of a hospital pass for you, but I don't really have any comments and questions.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, sorry, I'll turn my video off. My internet connection isn't great, so I was trying to make sure I stay connected. Yeah, can I speak both as the Ledbury Ward Councillor and give Councillor James's comments as well? Thanks for allowing me to speak as a Ledbury Town Councillor, because and a Ward Councillor as well, because this is really important but frustratingly long-awaited scheme in Ledbury, the St Catherine's car park landscaping, and it's great to see that we are realistically close to the completion of the landscaping at long last, and it's one of the 4 schemes being put forward in the whole of this bid. So thank you very much for including that well within time that it should be done, and really appreciated. So I fully support the application as an important project, and it really will revitalise the town centre, and it's a very important part of it. It'll enhance the area setting to increase footfall and enhance it as an attractive public space for outdoor events for residents and tourists alike. So it really is that important. The description of it as Project C in clause 29 of the application, the report, exactly describes how we'd like to see this space developed to increase the viability. And that's an important word, the viability of the town centre offer. It really is that important to us, although it's a relatively small scheme in the great scheme project, in the great scheme of things, it is still really important. It is actually only the 4th priority project in the Ledbury investment plan, and clearly we'd like to see some of the other bigger projects coming forward, and it's not the most strategically important. And so I welcome Councillor Harris's reassurance that it's hoped that some of the other schemes can come forward before too long. I'm particularly pleased to read that in clause 75, the £108,000 balance of the £120,000 that Aldi were asked to give for their Section 106 money, specifically targeted for this area, does at long last seem destined to be spent. So that's great news. I wholeheartedly welcome it, therefore, and support the proposal for Ledbury. And I would like to also thank officers and Cabinet for putting together all these schemes in what is ridiculously tight timescales as ever. They always seem to be, and I'd certainly support Councillor Harvey's plea that, for goodness sake, give us some realistic time, because in parishes particularly, this work falls on clerks, councillors. There's just so much work to do that the councillors who are not paid on full time can't really help a great deal. So it puts a huge burden on the clerks in the parishes who already have really full workloads, and isn't like our clerk. There's a substantial amount of toil put in as extra work that couldn't be done any other way. And I wish government understood that the pressures that they put on people. Nevertheless, it's good that it's coming forward. On the timescales, it looks like, because it's a small project, it looks like our timescale is looking like 23-24 completion of this scheme. It'd be good to get that confirmation. But before I just give Councillor James's comments as well, he sent his apologies and said he would try and make it. Obviously, hasn't been able to. And he does support the scheme for Leicester. Very much welcomes that, and that's another good scheme for North Herefordshire. But as you'd expect, disappointed that there are no schemes for the other two market towns, particularly his own ward of Kington, and also none for Beyond Yard either. And whilst we know an enormous amount of work's been done in a short timescale for these projects, it's a bit disappointing, obviously, that we couldn't actually put more schemes forward, not ready for them or able to do it in the bid time. But like every other council, supporting the fact we are making some progress. So thanks, Leader, for letting me speak. Important to us in Ledbury and North Herefordshire.
Thank you, Councillor Howes. Turn now to Councillor Leicester.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes. Well, first of all, I'd like to acknowledge the administration's approach of approaching scrutiny chairs and vice chairs and councillors, so that they're fully abreast of the proposals going forward. You know, like that approach, and thank you for that. It's always a challenge when there are such tight timescales, and I acknowledge the points that you've made about the timescales. But I think on reflection, paragraph 9 of the report just highlights how Herefordshire really needs that boost to its economy, given that the challenges about getting high-paid jobs and a boost to our economy. So there is an urgency to this regeneration, and I think that given the speed at which normally projects progress, it's probably a good thing that there is this sense of urgency to get those bids in, because we really need to make a difference to the economy that's recovering from all kinds of challenges that it's had. So, perhaps Councillor Hitchener, you can feed back to Minister Gove while you're up there in Harrogate, but we'll send that feedback back too. But I think it is because there is this sense of urgency. Projects need to happen, and it's tight delivery turnaround, but there are good reasons for it being something that's of the essence and needing to be progressed very quickly. Having said that, tribute to officers and the town council has already been said of Leicester for rallying round and getting these bids together, and I know cabinet members have been working really hard to ensure that as well. So no time has been lost in making sure the deadline, I think it's next Wednesday, isn't it? So acknowledge that. In terms of the projects, obviously the Conservatives welcome any investment to the market towns and to enhance the assets that are already there. So we welcome the projects and welcome the project in Ross, because to have that key industrial investment in somewhere with those key transport links is a really important nettle to grasp. And so fingers crossed, that's already, like has already been said, that these projects are going to be meeting the first round. Obviously the proposals for Hereford City as part of the active travel measures, these are welcome as well, and there's much work that still needed to be done to do those active travel measures, and so in principle we support lots of the initiatives that are there, but would make the plea really that this should be part of an initiative that also must dovetail in with sensible proposals with regard to dealing with the transport infrastructure network that will not disappear, will not go away, and will need to be accommodated. I have to say that the bypass project had at least over £20 million worth of funding that would have been set aside to do active travel measures, but in cancelling the bypass, that opportunity was lost. But it's important to note that these are really important proposals that will help things. One of the points I made with my scrutiny chair hat on is, whilst I see the merits of 20-mile-an-hour zones, one of the questions I had, and it's a question I have for the administration, is what evidence have we got that 20-mile-an-hour zones are effective? I mean, if they are effective, that's all well and good, but keen to know the evidence for that. A second question would be, is the PMO, the Project Management Office, confident that these projects that have been selected can be delivered in that time scale? You know, it's a question that I think needs to be asked continually. And a third question would be, if the bids don't make it to the next round for whatever reason, and I note that Councillor Chown says we're a priority area, so fingers crossed. If the bids don't go through to the next stage, what will happen? What's the plan? What's plan B, as it were? And conversely, if the projects are successful, comments have already been made about the fact that other market towns haven't, you know, been put forward in this instance. If the projects are successful, obviously that gives greater capacity for the council to address the other market towns, and what capacity would then be directed to ensuring that they get support as well. Thank you.
Okay, so Councillor Harrington, do you want to deal with the 20-mile-an-hour question?
Yes, I'll happily. I mean, it's a fair challenge from Councillor Leicester that there is quite a lot of evidence, and I can make sure she's provided with it to show that safety increases when you have a 20-mile-an-hour zone. There are less severe accidents in those areas. But I think also the aspect that we sometimes miss out is the amenity aspect, the fact that it brings a better feeling to a community in terms of a better place to live rather than a place that's just being driven through. I think that's the most significant part of the 20-mile-an-hour zone approach. And it is a zone rather than, you know, a sort of a whole, you know, set of streets or a road, a large road being 20 miles an hour. So that's the approach that will be taken. But we can provide some of the reports for Councillor Leicester. Just coming on to the point he makes about a bypass. I mean, obviously he's at liberty to continue to press on that issue. We have obviously taken as full council democratically taken the decision that a combination of interventions in terms of transport is what Hereford needs, including another river crossing, which we intend to provide in the east. We've already begun the first consultant strategic work on that, which will be finished in August, which will be able to tell us essentially how long it would take in a timeline, start to identify a route, and start to follow the next steps. I think it's very important for us to remember that we can't just, in this day and age, for all sorts of reasons, expect to travel around by car. And we need people who do have to use their car to come in from out of town to have that space on the road. And we need to encourage people in town to really take active travel seriously. And they want to. The problem is the 20 million that Councillor Leicester mentions for active travel measures. I haven't seen a single, you know, without being disrespectful, I haven't seen a single active travel measure provided by the previous administration that serves its purpose. They're all shared space. They give up at junctions. They're not in any way compliant with the regulations that were coming in even at the time, LTN 120. You know, the strategic thought wasn't there. You know, there wasn't discussions being had with schools about transport. It was just a singular kind of almost, I wouldn't say obsession, but a singular kind of view. So we're trying to be a bit more comprehensive. But we haven't given up on that understanding. That's a very significant part of our transport strategy, and we have significant funding for that, which is why we haven't had to use it, and we haven't had to bid through this mechanism.
Okay, I think a couple more questions that Councillor Leicester had. One was about the PMO office. I don't know whether Councillor Harvey, you're able to respond to that. I'm looking for you on the screen. Yes.
Councillor Chowns is signalling. Do you want to go first?
Not on the PMO, Liz, you go on that and then I'll take some of the other points that. Councillor
Okay. Well, you know, well-managed projects tend to be delivered to time and to budget in the way that poorly managed projects in the past haven't. So the PMO will be doing everything that it can do to ensure that the projects are managed to time and to budget. However, I think everybody recognises, and the report, you know, is clear, there are risks, particularly when we have inflation, and particularly inflation when it comes to building materials, in the that we're facing of the nature that we are presently, double digit. So we're putting our bids in. Government will be just as aware of the uncertainties as we are. And all the bids they receive will be, you know, caveated with the same levels of concern. Of course, you know, it will be down to the council, if we get to go ahead on these, to see that these projects are delivered. And if they overrun in money or in time there'll be a problem. If they overrun in money, then that will be something that will fall to us to deal with, and hopefully we'll manage them or de-scope them if we have to, in order to manage that risk appropriately. And I think that's all I can say at this time.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Harvey. So the last bit is about Plan B, and what about the other market towns? Councillor Chowns.
Thanks, yeah, and thanks to Councillor Leicester and Councillor Howells also for points from Councillor James. I'd like to pick up a few of them. I will just start on the 20-mile-an-hour zone evidence. Actually, I was in another meeting with Councillor Leicester where he raised this, and I think I sent a couple of links at that point. I'd just like to quote from one of those, which is a 2018 government review, which says, on page 17, from the evidence review, there's a comprehensive message from across the UK and Europe demonstrating that 20-mile-an-hour zones can result in significant reductions in average speeds and collisions. The evidence presents reductions in casualties ranging between 20 to 45% on traffic calm streets with 20-mile-an-hour zones. So that sounds to me like quite good evidence from a good systematic review of studies on this. On the questions raised regarding which projects were put forward and which towns were put forward. Just to clarify, one of the restrictions from government on this was that no more than 3 projects can be put forward in a constituency bid. Now, in the North Herefordshire constituency, we have 4 market towns: Kington, Leicester, Bromyard and Ledbury. But we were only able to put forward a maximum of 3 projects. Also, government regulations on levelling up funds said that they had to be strongly strategically linked. And so that is why we've ended up with the projects put forward that we have in this bid. Regarding the point of, whether directing funding to these projects will liberate funding that can then be directed to the other market towns, I would love it if that were true. Unfortunately, we're still faced with the same constraints that we went through when we discussed the market town investment plan and proposals in terms of the types of funding that they can access. But we are absolutely, working our socks off to try to make sure that we can identify funding sources for projects in Bromyard and Kington, and indeed the other projects in Leicester and in Ledbury, that, as have been identified, are also real priorities. And just to kind of really emphasise this point, we've talked about the constraints on levelling up funding, and there are at least 3 that really, really narrow down what could possibly be eligible for this. So one is the point about time. Projects have to be able to kind of get implementing this financial year before next March and finish by March 2025. And that means that projects where we don't already own the land, for example, or where we haven't got, real confirmation that we can definitely get this project done by March 25, as the councillor asked about, they're simply not eligible. As the consultants told us, that they wouldn't get through. So the time is a really severe limitation. Another one is the types of projects we could apply for. So you'll see from the Levelling Up Fund guidance, there were only 3 categories of projects: transport, regeneration in town centres, and cultural investment. Now, there are many other things that we would love to do that would have a fantastic benefit for the county. For example, we're just working up a business case for doing, significant amounts of retrofit work, in investment in insulating people's houses, a key concern at this time of rising fuel bills. The benefit cost ratio on that is fantastic, but that's the sort of project that wouldn't be eligible under Levelling Up Fund. And thirdly, there's the capital revenue split issue that Councillor Harrington talked about earlier. Quite often government says, look, you can apply for a pot of money to build something, but not for the money to kind of run the services associated with them. That's often the case with transport infrastructure. For example, physical things to do with buses. We can build a bus station, but we can't get support from government to actually run the bus services that we need in that bus station. So these three constraints on the way that central government organises its funding pots, and the complete lack of flexibility that there is around that, so really constrain the ability of local authorities to invest in what is strategically needed for the good of everybody here. So, we all need to work together to send that message to central government. If government is serious about genuine levelling up, it needs to provide longer term, fairer, more fairly distributed across the country, and much more flexible funding so that local authorities can develop and invest in long-term projects that we need.
Great, thank you, Councillor Chance. Moving on then to Councillor Matthews, who I think is in the room.
I am indeed. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Bob.
First of all, I'd like to thank the officers and everybody that's worked hard on this report, a very comprehensive report, and thank you for all your hard work. I fully support, or me and my colleagues fully support, the Transport Hub, the model farm at Ross, which I know was questionable as a while ago. We didn't think it was viable, but I'm glad that that's now been funded by this money. Safer routes to school, etc., and all what's been proposed in there, it had our full support. Councillor Army quite rightly mentioned rural villages. We've got to accept that a large proportion of our wealth comes from rural villages or rural areas. You put two large rural villages together, the population is the equivalent of most of our market towns. So we must make sure that this is a county-wide effort and we don't concentrate too much on just the market towns themselves. It goes on to say, as our younger generation reach higher education, this is at item 9, they have tended to move away to access university education, and we don't have the higher level of jobs to attract them back. How correct that is, and that's been going on for far too long. But I respectfully suggest, unless we do something to address that more than what's in this report, that we agree to upgrade our infrastructure. We will not attract the high-paying companies into the county to pay and deliver these high-paid jobs to bring these bright young people back into the county. I'm not talking about new roads. I'm talking about upgrading the A49 from Hereford to Ross, which is a highway agency, and I'm talking about upgrading the Prince Hollins Road through to Belmont with a bypass for Madley. And unless we do that, I think your report, you're going to be struggling to deliver what you're saying in here. Therefore, some of the figures given Councillor Chowns, I would say, were rather questionable, because unless you've got the infrastructure and you're attracting the right companies into the county to generate the wealth and the jobs, we're struggling from day one. So I respectfully suggest that's something that you've got to look at. And I'd like to ask Councillor Harrington if he agrees that unless we upgrade our infrastructure, we are not going to attract the right companies into the county to deliver the jobs, well-paid, secure jobs we need. So I would be grateful that when I finish, you could answer that. I then go on to the cost on page 19, and they talk about inflation, 22, 10%, and after that 5% and what have you. Inflation at the moment is anything from 10, 15% on materials per month, not per year, and they're very unstable, and the future is very questionable where we'll be. So there could be issues there. So I'd like to ask Mr. Cook if he could first of all quote on those percentages, and also he's approved the report, that he could give us his professional opinion on what he thinks about it, and that it's appropriate to deliver the issues in this county. As I say, we've got a lot of bright young people, and I sadly read showing paragraph 9 where we appear to be below there. That's not my experience when I go around the country. Herefordshire people will hold their own with anybody, anywhere in the country. And that's my experience. I've never seen them do any other in any degree at all. So, it's sad to read that, but I suppose we're an average weekly wages and all the rest of it well below some parts. That's why we want to attract the right companies into the county, and that's been the main reason that they haven't come in for many years, is a proper infrastructure. See, I'm not talking about new roads. Yes, Councillor Harrington and I'm working closely with him to deliver an eastern crossing, but we also need that 849 upgraded from Hereford to Ross, because if we don't bring those companies in to provide the jobs, we're struggling from day one. Thank you.
So, Councillor Harrington, it's first to you, with Councillor Matthews always managing to convert a statement into a question. So, do you agree, Councillor Harrington?
Do I agree with the fact that we need to make sure we've got good infrastructure? Of course I do, and Councillor Matthews knows that, and Councillor Matthews comes from the same approach that I do, that we don't need to be talking about ridiculously expensive and difficult to kind of prove returns on 250 million plus stretches of road. What we're talking about is making our transport system work better, work well on the roads that we already have, talking about where we have central congestion, giving people the opportunity to travel a different way, making sure we get an Eastern Bridge in so we have that resilience issue sorted. In many ways, I think when Councillor Matthews say we want to attract big business or business from other places, that's true, but actually we want to allow our very good businesses that we have. You've only got to look at Rotherhurst to see the amount of really fantastic business that's moved in over the last 10 or 15 years. With our companies down there, with the cyber centre, with many of the distribution businesses, who, as a matter of course, do not wish to send anything up on the A49. They wish to send it, as you say, onto the motorway system at Ross. So yes, it's about making sure that we have good infrastructure, that we reduce congestion, we give people different options to travel, and that we improve our resilience. And all of those things we will look at. And in particular, the issues he raises about bridge solids, which I know is something that's important, and the connectivity between the 49 and the 465, that is being scoped at the moment, and we will make sure we consult. And I have even looked at the lay-by pull-in, the country lane lay-by pull-in, which is one of Councillor Matthews' favourite. We have looked at that, and we continue to look at that, because a point he makes very validly is that very often our lanes, which do act as quite good arteries, get clogged up with people pushing in verges and pushing in ditches, and we may, whether we need to really, in a sense, have a strategy for that. And that's I think the point. We've got to plan things in a way that we probably haven't planned properly in the past, and we have someone to do that now.
So the other question was for Mr. Cook, and when and I'm sure Cabinet as a whole, when we look at these papers, we do look carefully at the risk management, just to see how the risks have been identified and how they are mitigated. So, Mr. Cook, I don't know whether you can respond to that question.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, I'm more than happy to both give my assurance and sort of confirmation that the amount of work that's been done to bring the proposals to you this evening has certainly covered many of the issues that Councillor Matthews has brought to us. I think that it's worth just noting, obviously, the delegation is to myself to make sure that the SRO for the projects that I'm satisfied that we can deliver. Again, I'll give that assurance that we certainly feel that we can, and the team have done a great piece of work to bring this forward in this way. The second part of the sign off of the bids is obviously for myself and Andrew Lovegrove to sign it off. Andrew will sign off as the 151 officer. Again, that's with that assurance that we can deliver this within the budgets that we're putting forward, and there's been significant testing of the costings in there. Certainly the challenging times with regards to inflation is across all of our projects, but we're making sure that we're monitoring that as part of our bid and the money that comes forward. the contingencies are set, of course, across each of the projects, make sure that we can monitor that. But again, with the project management team in place as well, we'll make sure that hopefully with a successful response from government, that we will then be ready to go and the budgets are set aside appropriately.
Thank you. Councillor Chowns, you have your hand raised.
Thanks. Yeah, just briefly to respond to the points that Bob raised there. Infrastructure is important, absolutely. But I just wanted to share with you, Bob, a story of a business that I visited very recently on Rotherwas. They didn't talk to me about infrastructure. They talked to me about the issue of attracting people to work here. They've got the skilled jobs to offer, but they're talking to me about the fact that people want a vibrant place to live. You know, it's the culture of the place where they live that they're really interested in. And I think that's a fantastic segue into what we're going to talk about under the next agenda item with the Stronger Towns sets of proposals, which are going to do so much to kind of really have a transformational effect on Hereford City and the broader county as well. So infrastructure is important, but it's not the be all and end all. And actually my role as Cabinet Member for Economy, I meet a lot of businesses, and you know, the one that I visited most recently, what they talked to me about was the culture of the county. On the inflation figures, Ross has given you the assurance of that. You know, we just today had another update on those. The quantity surveyors are working, you know, they're on it, you know, really, really tightly. And on the point about GVA being below average here, I agree with your sentiment about we don't want to do down the county at all. You know, it is a fact that wages are lower here than nationally. That actually goes back hundreds of years. I was looking at information most recently in Hereford Town Council's Tourist Information Centre, which was about the differential in wages between Herefordshire and the rest of the West Midlands 150 years ago. So, you know, these are deep-seated and long-standing inequalities, which is why levelling up funding for places like Herefordshire is so important. And it's why it's so frustrating that we have those constraints on the funding that don't allow us to do all the things that we need to do. But I share your view that in Herefordshire, it is more than just GVA that we count. We count the quality of life that we offer here. And again, that links to what we're trying to do with the Towns Fund, as well as with all of the opportunities that we can find to invest in strengthening the quality of life for people here in Herefordshire.
Thank you. I'll move on now to Councillor Milne and then Councillor Wilding.
Thank you, Leader. And I'm sorry, the technical problems that afflicted the beginning of the meeting persisted with me for about 15 or 20 minutes. I had to call a boffin out. So I missed most of Councillor Harrington, I think all of Councillor Chance's initial remarks. So I'm in catch-up mode to some extent. But yes, I'm standing in for Councillor Fagan, who's not able to be with us for compassionate reasons, to represent the Green Group. And clearly the Green Group are warmly supportive and appreciative of the effort officers have made to put this bid together in short order, as most of my colleagues have also commented. And I'm sensitive to the fact that there is a good balance of prospective projects here that answer the key criteria of the bid: the transport, the town centre regeneration, the cultural offer, legs of this package. And I regret and understand, for the reasons that Councillor Chance has just explained, that although it is titled a levelling up fund, that we can't spread it to all the market towns within the county. And as a Hereford City Councillor, representing a Hereford City Ward, sensitive of an accusation, not unreasonable accusation, that it seems very often the city gets the lion's share and the poorer market towns get rather left out. So I'm very pleased to see that we've got Ross Enterprise Park and the Leicester, the old Priory building, and work in Leicester Town Centre potentially coming forward as well. I just wanted to focus briefly on the Hereford staff, although Councillor Harrington has explained it very well. I'm, as you probably know, very enthusiastic, for example, about what we call the 20s Plenty campaign. And as Councillor Leicester may remember, there is an invitation out to all members. So do come to the Civic Society's presentation on the 21st of, little plug here, the 21st of July, where we'll have Professor John Whiteleg and the chair of the 2020 campaign nationally, a chap called Rod King, give presentations to anybody who wants to come, organised for the Civic Society in at the left bank in the big room upstairs in the left bank. So that'll be 7:30. So do come to that. On the other elements of the Hereford City Transport bid, yes, I'm very, very keen that we move forward with the transport hub, and I welcome consultation with members on the draft designs for that, not just elected members, of course, members of the public too, not just involved stakeholders. And I welcome the improvement of our cycle infrastructure, and it's a sadness in a way that we're going to have to revisit the straight miles at the Home Lacey Road, since quite a lot of money was spent on that, I think, on the back of the Rotherhurst Link Road, but sadly it is not LTN 120 compliant by a country mile. So we must no longer do cycle infrastructure that is interrupted by the side roads, that simply expires at the junctions, that invites illicit parking, that politicians, I exempt any politician in this room, of course, then turn around and say, well, you know, we've proven that there's no benefit in spending money on cycle infrastructure. Let's go back to a road mentality. That would be a great mistake. So it's simply a matter of getting it right. Then we can deliver the modal shift we need. Okay, thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Milne, and finally, Councillor Wilding.
Thank you, Leader. So the independents for Herefordshire warmly welcome all these bids and very supportive of them. And we also wish to thank all the officers for all their hard work. In particular, you won't be surprised, I'm a ward councillor for the south of the county, and so I'm particularly happy to see that the Ross scheme is included in this, and also very happy to see that that scheme includes things like linking it via cycle links and active travel links to the centre of Ross. I would like to, and I've pointed this out before, it would be good to have something in there to just say that we'd look to having those cycle links pointing in the other direction as well, down the A40 to villages like Lee and Weston-under-Penyard, which are not that far away, have had a lot of houses built on them in recent years. And if we could get cycle links up the A40 on the side of the A40, that would mean they could benefit, and people who lived in those houses might be able to work in that enterprise park. So I think that's a vital thing that it would be good to include. Obviously, the scheme can't go right down the A40 as it is, but just to leave a gap there waiting for it to be connected if and when it can be would be really useful, I think. Obviously, all the active travel measures in Hereford town are really warmly welcomed. And we all feel in the independents for Herefordshire that that is the way forward, and that talk of bringing in the bypass again, it just ignores the point that building new roads just encourages more traffic because of induced traffic. In 5 or 6 years, that road would be absolutely full again, and it would be all extra traffic. And at this time, given what's happening with the climate, to even think of encouraging extra traffic on that scale is just a slap in the face for future generations who are going to have to cope with all that. So that's our opinion of that. Back to Ross, I think the job opportunities are going to be fantastic. And given that Ross and Lee and Weston-under-Penyard and all the towns around here have had so many more houses built, really do need that work so that people don't have to travel miles and miles away from those houses to find employment. Just on the question of timescales that people have been talking about with these government grants, I mean, when I've applied in the past for Arts Council grants, they always work on a rolling scale. You know, you can apply over the year. There's about 4 different times during the year when you can make rolling bids. And it would be great to see government do something like that, because as other people have pointed out, they seem to announce that there's going to be a bid coming forward, but they only give you a couple of months to do it. So you can't really get really into it and create the best bid possible. Anyway, thank you. That's all from me.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Wilding. Okay, so I'll put the motion to vote. Of course, getting these bid documents out is really significant, and council officers and others have done a tremendous lot of work on this. Unfortunately, the work won't stop, because if we are to deliver on these projects, if we get the green light September, October time, we're going to have to be very quick in getting everything done. So there's a lot of work to be done, I'm afraid, from now until then. It won't stop. And really just thank you to the officers who I know are committed to this, all the work you're going to be doing over the next few months. We really do appreciate that. And we do hope the government will come up with what we asked for. And of course, at the same time, we're trying to write these other projects for things in the future. So there is such a demand on officer time. We really do appreciate all that you're doing. So I'll put this recommendation to the cabinet members. So the recommendations first: A, the submission of bids to the Levelling Up Fund by the 6th of July is approved for the package of public realm improvements in Leicester, in Leicester, Ledbury town centres, and enhancements to the Leicester Old Priory building. Secondly, development of the site infrastructure and development plots for the Ross Enterprise Park. And thirdly, a package of transport and active travel measures in and around Hereford City. And then B, authority to make technical amendments to the final bid submissions is delegated to the Corporate Director for Economy and Environment. And C, authority is delegated to the Section 151 officer to formally submit the bids by the 6th of July 2022 deadline. So thank you very much. All those in favour, and if someone would just confirm that we do have a majority. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so we now move on to the next item, which is another significant one, the Stronger Towns Project full business case submission. And for this one, again, I'm not going to give a summary at the beginning. I'll pass over straight away to Councillor Davis for her introduction. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Today, I'm delighted to present the 2 Stronger Towns business case submissions for the Hereford Museum and Art Gallery redevelopment project and Maylord Orchards Library and Learning Resource Centre project. I would firstly like to say thank you to all of the officers who have worked ridiculous hours to get us to the business case submission date. I know that this has felt like an impossible task, and I know firsthand of the hard work and dedication you have shown to both projects. I cannot put into words how grateful I and the rest of the Cabinet are to you all. Those of you that know me will know that I say quite a few things about culture, but one of the main things I say is that culture is the answer. It's the answer to economic growth. It's the answer to address social inequalities. It's the answer for education. It's the answer for expression for some of our most disadvantaged residents. It's the answer for social isolation. I could go on, but hopefully by now you get the point. The arts, once seen as elitist and only for the rich, now has an opportunity to be the building blocks in which we rebuild post-COVID. It's for this reason that we come before Cabinet today with these 2 projects showing the ambition and commitment to culture that has been desperately needed after years of penny pinching and austerity. Some will ask, why now? Why, when people are struggling financially, should we do 2 big projects like this? The answer is simple: we must. Indeed, the Town Investment Plan for Hereford City states Hereford is an important heritage centre with assets that have significantly underperformed their potential as tourist attractions. Our current museum and art gallery, along with aspects of the cathedral visitor offer, are in urgent need of contemporary refreshment and updating. As an example, the museum project alone is expected to return £2.5 million per year into the local economy. The business case for the museum sets out our bold vision of creating a world-class visitor experience, a museum and art gallery for all to experience and enjoy, based on our significant rural heritage and creating a best practice example of achieving the highest environmental standards possible in the redevelopment of a Grade 2 listed building. Of particular significance is the feature of the redevelopment of the roof terrace, which would contain a viewing area looking out over our historic city, a very unique feature. And if I keep pressing on it, I'm pretty sure that we'll be able to get some virtual reality sets up there so you can see what the marches used to be like. You will see within the business case that there are significant issues with the current museum. The top floors are currently out of use and only 10 people are permitted to visit at present. This significantly impacts the nature of exhibitions we are able to attract, the visitor experience, and also the amount of Herefordshire treasures that we are able to display. In addition, the museum will house the Herefordshire Hoard, which is an Anglo-Saxon and Viking Age hoard buried around 878. These items have rewritten history, and the museum provides an excellent opportunity to showcase the items and the story, attracting further visitors to the facility. Please do visit the Herefordshire Hoard website to see where you can view some of the hoard and where you can also donate to the campaign to bring the hoard home from the British Museum. The second project involves the relocation of the library to Maylord Orchards into a brand new library and learning resource centre. The Maylord Orchard Library and Learning Resource Centre project will regenerate the city centre, creating new reasons for people to visit and spend time and money at the very heart of Hereford. As retail declines, every town and city is looking for new ways to repurpose their town centres. This is ours. Some people will say, and I have read social media over the weekend, what the heck are you doing thinking about moving the library to a shopping centre? Won't it be noisy? Yes, it will, in parts, and that's exactly what we want. The traditional perception of a library where people are being shushed for talking is not what we want. Well, of course, there will be soundproofed areas for those who require it, but this is about creating a living, thriving hub for learning, for our communities to meet, and to work with our health and social care colleagues to bring health services onto the high street. You will see in the design a new cafe, bringing back the buzz of the Intermissions Cafe that some of us will remember. You will also see substantial work to get meeting and creative spaces into Trinity Square. For those of you that don't know, Trinity Square is just outside the entrance to the shopping centre. I've shared this story of officers before about being left by my mum when she was in CNA, and I was being entertained by all the various free activities in the square. This is what we think, this is what we want, this is what we're seeking to achieve. And I would like to extend a huge thank you to Lorraine, the Maylord Orchards shopping centre manager, who has been working tirelessly over the last year to put on free events throughout the year for children, which have been incredibly well received. On the finance side, which I know Councillor Harvey, Councillor Matthews will be very interested in, analysis by Suffolk Libraries by independent consultants Moore, Kingston Smith estimate that for every £1 spent on just 3 of their library activities creates £8.04 in social value. Just 3 key activities generate just under £2 million worth of social value every single year. The Cabinet decision also seeks approval, subject to full council agreement, to amend the capital programme to commit up to 8.5 of the council's capital reserves into these 2 key projects to ensure that they can be implemented, invested in the future prosperity and quality of life of our great city and county. For the museum, the original proposal for the project was to seek £5 million from Stronger Towns, £5 million from the National Heritage Lottery Fund, and a £5 million loan from the council to be repaid from income from exhibitions, cafes, shop and events. The specialist support that has helped us develop the full business case has identified it would not be possible to sustain a loan of this level, and the project would therefore not progress. However, recognising the significant benefits that I've outlined some of them of the project to the city and to the county, critical to implementing the town investment plan, the Cabinet will consider today allocating up to £8 million, and I really need to emphasise up to £8 million from our reserves to this flagship project. Given the uncertain world we all face at the moment, the commitment of up to £8 million provides an allowance for cost inflation as the project progresses. For Maylord Orchards, the Cabinet decision also seeks to commit £0.5 million from the capital reserves to the Maylord Orchards project. To deliver the full ambition of the project, the full business case has identified a cost of £3.5 million against a £3 million grant available from Stronger Towns. The project also includes around about £800,000 worth of investment in the atrium and Trinity Square, creating a new vibrant heart to the city centre. As such, the Cabinet is asked to support a £500,000 contribution to the project to ensure it can be delivered and the residents of the county can benefit. I look forward to questions.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. As you know, I can't see hands raised in the room. Councillor Harvey has raised her room virtually.
Thank you, Leader. If I may, I've got a few questions. If I could start with the museum. I've got 3 questions here. I love the current museum and library building. I was first introduced to it during a primary school history trip back in, I'm afraid to say, the 1970s, when I was surprised and delighted by all the monkeys and other animals and decorations that were crawling all over the outside of the building. The drawings for this building project look exciting and very state of the art, particularly in terms of the energy efficiency that's being aimed for, and the rooftop terrace and everything. But please can I and members of the public be assured that the frontage of the building, which we all know and love, will be preserved whilst the rest of the building is extended and enhanced?
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for the question, Councillor Harvey. The front facade, as you look at it, is listed. It's going to be listed. You've also got the Woolhope room, which is just above it. None of those will be able to be touched without specific approval, and we wouldn't want to. It's what makes the building so beautiful in the first place. So absolutely, we can assure people that nothing is happening to the outside of the building itself. It will be the bits where we are allowed to work on. So, for example, if you take, as you go into the main atrium of the museum, if you look up, there are some awful cork tiles at the top. They will be coming out, and you have got a beautiful glass ceiling that we'll be able to expose. So we're hoping to enhance all of the features that are currently hidden.
Okay, that's really good news. I was pleased to visit the wonderful exhibition of Grayson Perry's tapestry series. I think it's called The Rake's Progress, when it was secured to come to the Hereford Museum in the autumn last year. What a coup. However, when I visited, only 10 people at a time were allowed to be able to be together in the exhibition space, which is a shame if it limited the number of people who were able to see this startling artwork. Why are viewers so limited in this museum space, and will the project that we're proposing here do anything about that constraint?
Yes, absolutely. So the reason for the 10 people was to do with fire exits and escapes. So you're limited to the 10 people up in the exhibition space. One of the things that I think we've been really keen on is saying, actually, and certainly social media, people are saying, well, why are we moving it? Why are we leaving the building? We're not. What we're accepting is that that building can't continue as both a library and a museum if we want it to excel. So that's why the library will move. And actually, we will have 7 floors in total. where we'll be able to have exhibition space on all of them. So the figures will increase significantly, and yes, absolutely, the 10 person limit will be removed. Probably worth saying as well, from my perspective, and the way I talk about equalities all the time, the saddest thing was that if you had limited mobility, you couldn't see it at all. And we have to make sure that all of our buildings are accessible for all. Otherwise, we just increase those social inequalities.
Okay, no, that's good to hear. Thank you. The museum service has many more local treasures than it's able to place on display in the museum area of the present combined museum and library building. What are the plans for the display capability for the refurbished building? How much more space will we have? And will we be able to get to see some of the treasures that are buried in the Friar Street archive?
Absolutely. So one of the first things that I did when I became cabinet member was have a viewing of all of the treasures in Friar Street, and if you haven't gone, please do contact them to have a look around, especially at the moment, because you can see the Herefordshire Hoard. But the whole purpose about the museum is that it has lots of we've had professional advice that says if you have fixed exhibitions, it's not going to attract the same amount of people as if you have touring exhibitions, and so we have absolutely stacks of treasures that we could get out of Friar Street into the museum. But also for me, the whole point about Stronger Towns is that Hereford City was the only part of Herefordshire that could bid that was applicable. But we have museums and libraries all across our county, and this for me stands that we should be getting all of our treasures not just out into the museum, but out into our market towns and supporting them so that they can also benefit from that visitor economy and also about that heritage. So yes, absolutely. If it was my way, there'd be nothing in Friar Street and everything would be out and about in Herefordshire.
Well, okay, that's really good news. I still need to get to the bottom of everything that's in Friar Street, but I've seen a little bit of what they've got in their display cabinets in the foyer, and it's going to be good to get those out on public display. The other thing I wanted to say was about the library and Maylord's Orchards. And I just want to take a moment to say something about my own relationship with and gratitude to libraries and the library service here in Herefordshire and in Hereford and Worcestershire before that. My relationship with the library started before I started school. My mother used to take my brother and sister and me every week to the library to choose a new storybook or to take out again an old favourite. To read to us before bedtime and to pore over the pictures by torchlight under the bed covers. The mobile library visited my village every month while I was growing up, and it also visited my primary school and topped up our library books with new books, which opened up the world to me. After school, libraries became my access point for research and reference whilst I was carrying on my studies, including the fantastic Hive facility over in Worcester as part of the university. And, you know, every university needs access to excellent library facilities. And I know that the Enmite in Hereford will be no different. And bringing the library story right up to date, the library in Ledbury has provided a source of grisly crime fiction to my now very elderly mother, her preferred genre, and also was an absolute lifeline to her through COVID, when even though we lived in the same town, we were isolated from one another, and she was very much alone. But the library books that she took out, the talking books, made a huge difference to her quality of life. And I am so pleased that we are able to put this bid forward as part of the Stronger Towns programme on behalf of the council to provide a 21st century library facility, which will be so much more than a dusty old room full of books. That's not what the library of the 21st century looks like, is so exciting and so important. And I hope that everybody gets really excited about Hereford having a 21st century library, and that they're in and out of Maylord's orchards like my brother and sister and I were in and out of libraries as children, and they make friends with it, and that it helps them see the world through new eyes, because libraries certainly did that for me when I was a child.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Harvey. Any other cabinet members at the moment want to comment, or shall I move on to? I'll move on to Councillor Howells on behalf of Councillor James.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. I think it's all been said, to be honest. Very clear explanation from Cabinet Member and good questions from Councillor Harvey. They're obviously worthy projects that we should be supporting, so I'm happy to do it. I'm sure Councillor James would totally agree.
Thank you, Councillor Howells. Moving on then to Councillor Leicester.
Yes, thank you. On behalf of the Conservative Group, yes, we understand the initiatives and appreciate the merits that could be brought forward as a result of these projects. When we've got such valuable assets, in particular with the museum, we've got such really important assets that really need to be made in the best possible light so that they're accessible and available to so many people. And so investment in these areas is crucial, and it adds social value as well as maintaining our heritage assets. Absolutely. And again, got to take advantage of government funding that acknowledges that our towns and cities, and in this instance Hereford, needs to benefit from that inward investment. So we acknowledge all of that. With perhaps both schemes, one of the things that we're conscious of is getting that key funding is absolutely essential, and it feels like it's all the battle. But the other challenge, of course, is coping with being left with the revenue costs. So is the administration, is Councillor Davis satisfied that there's a full understanding of the revenue costs? I appreciate the point about the social value costs. We all get that, we all understand that, and the merits of the scheme, that's not in dispute. But is the council fully aware of the revenue implications for both schemes, keeping them afloat, keeping them these assets that will be of value to people for various reasons, economic as well as social value? So I suppose that question is for both schemes, but in particular with the museum model. Is it right that museum model will be changed slightly so that there'll be a different focus to achieve more economic returns? And if that is the case, the revenue coming back, obviously that new model needs developing. And if the question then is there going to be an extra resource to ensure that new model is being developed? Because obviously we've got the museum staff at the moment who do an excellent job in all they do, but have they got the capacity to move towards that new model unless there's going to be more investment in staffing? And then a second question is obviously with the use of the museum space, that's obviously going to be part of a consultation process. What assurance is there that consultation process is going to reach out to all of those people who are expecting various kinds of things to come out of this project, so that they're fully aware of what's being on offer? So the three questions there: one about revenue, sustainability, the second question about the resource of the current team to develop the models, and have they got the support they need in order to achieve the economic vision that needs to happen? And then the third question is about the consultation. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Lester. Really good questions. Councillor Davis.
Yep. So I'll take the first one. So yes, regarding the revenue model, within the papers, there should be parts about what the revenue model looks like. That's where, certainly with the museum project, we were able to look at their amount, if it were given as a loan, add on the loan repayments, and certainly for the first couple of years with a big project like a museum, that's your first 2 years where you're actually building it up, and actually having those loan repayments would be too much, and that's where we've undergone some significant, not critique, just scrutiny of all of the figures. It's completely gone from me, the name of the organisation. Take the current, there we go. Take the current organisation went through those revenue business models. So yes, they have been scrutinised, not just by us, but also by Chamberlain Walker and also by Rose Regeneration and the Stronger Towns Board. Question 2, regarding the resources of the current staff. What I will say is that I think we have one of the best teams in cultural services that I've ever experienced. When COVID hit, they were the first people to come forward to go to people's homes and give them their prescriptions. And when I've been speaking to officers in cultural services, they are so excited about the development and I've got brilliant ideas, but also if you go back to Councillor Harvey's talking about the Grace and Perry exhibition, that was from way punching above our weight in the type of exhibitions we could get, and that was from members of staff within our current service who managed to achieve that on really going above and beyond. But what we have identified is that we will need a museum and library services head of service really to be able to push forward that strategic direction for the museum, so that we make sure that we have got the right amount of exhibition space, so that we're attracting the right types of exhibitions for the museum, but also to provide that oversight of what museums and libraries look like elsewhere and bringing those ideas in. So we have recognised that at the moment we have that need. But also regarding staff on the ground, there is also a proposal within the papers that we will be increasing the amount of staff. And I think for me, one of the most important things is that we take the view that our incredible volunteers who do wonderful things for our cultural services are not included in the numbers. They are supernumerary. They are in addition to actual staff, because the staff who work in cultural services don't just deal with requests. They end up dealing with safeguarding. They'll deal with lots of other front-facing issues that very few officers deal with in the council. So absolutely. And the third one, you'll have to remind me because I can't remember.
Consultation.
Oh yeah.
Use of museum space.
I think within the papers, the consultation document is in there where it states clearly who the interested parties would be. There's a whole host of different organisations, and certainly I've made it clear about the need to engage with young people, to engage with equality groups across the county, because ultimately we need everybody to be on board for this to be a success. I think that's it.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. So moving on then to Councillor Matthews.
Right, thank you, Leader. I'd like to thank Councillor Davis and everyone for the report. She's well aware that I've made it abundantly clear that myself and my two independent colleagues have supported her on these policies from day one, and also her care of our historic buildings. And she'll always have our full support to make sure that those issues are dealt with. But like everything else, Councillor Davis, money is the issue and value for money. And I notice on page 35, Herefordshire Council 151 officer, accountable body will report to HM government every 6 months on the Hereford Museum and Art Gallery project service delivery as stipulated in the town fund guidance. Now, if things start to slip and get difficult and money overshoots what you anticipated, can you just comment on what action what preparation you've made to deal with that? And the other question is, your learning resource centre. I'm intrigued by exactly what you're going to teach them in there. But we have a first class one. We have a fine Hereford and Ludlow Tech College. And, you know, bear in mind that they provide a lot of learning facilities and what have you. So if you could just explain a little bit of what resources will be provided in there and the management value for money and Mr. Lovegrove's monitoring of the situation, etc.
So if I take the first question, and if it's okay, Section 151 officer, I will pass over to you regarding the commitments. But I think it's important to say that the increase certainly to the amount that we're requesting is to take into account if anything does go over. What we have got is a robust project management office all over these projects, and as an accountable body, the council also has to balance check absolutely everything as it's going through. So I think it's important that firstly, we've allowed for that, for certainly if you take, for example, you talked about inflation earlier, that we've got that taken into consideration. Regarding the robustness and what procedures we've got, if I can hand over to Andrew Lovegrove, Section 151 officer, to answer that.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll answer it in two parts because I think it's important to make the distinction between what the role of the council is to deliver this project and also the role of the council as the accountable body. So to deliver the project, as Councillor Davis said, it'll be run through the PMO office, who will keep a very close eye on the whole project from start to finish. And you raised the point about potential overruns of either money or time. They will be monitoring that on a weekly basis. There'll be various board meetings. There's a monthly process to escalate if there are things that are starting to look as if they're not as they should be. So that will enable the council to have a very close eye on that. And if things get into difficulty and escalated, there will be things put in place to address that. As the accountable body, the Stronger Towns Board is just in the process of appointing a third party to run the project management for the whole of the Towns Board. So this is one of the projects there. So they'll be running something similar, keeping a very close eye on the monthly performance of all of the projects on the Stronger Towns Board. So again, if they feel things are not going as they should do, they will escalate that to the board, the Stronger Towns Board as well. So you in effect have two pairs of eyes on all of the projects in the Stronger Towns Board.
Lee, if I could just ask Councillor Davis, could she keep members updated, you know, quarterly or something like that on the progress of this project? Thank you.
Absolutely, no problem with that. Councillor Matthews, you're going to have to help me. I've forgotten the second question.
Learning Resources Centre.
Okay. Thought you were going to say so would you then. I was like, oh, we're all stuck. So yeah, regarding the resource centre, it's not meant to be a learning resource centre that competes with any colleges. It's not that type of thing. It's actually about the kind of life skills, what kind of things we can have to get people into employment. It's those types of ones. But historically, people would go into our library to do online. So there's lots of stuff around that. But if it's okay with you, can I pass over to Amy Pitt, because I know that she's been heavily involved in the conversations with other partners as well.
Yeah, of course, yeah. So the intention will be the Learning Resource Centre will be utilised by our adult learning service that's within the council as well, and they'll use that on a permanent basis. In addition to that, I've been liaising with health colleagues to see if they would like to utilise the building, adult social care, you know, talk community, a number of businesses as well to, you know, it provides an opportunity to have large meeting rooms, but also smaller meeting rooms or one-to-one rooms as well. So really offering that flexibility and that flexible space within the city centre for a range of services.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, Councillor Milne.
Yes, thank you, Leader. And you would expect me to say that I'm very, very appreciative and in huge admiration of these two projects, and I think that the work that's gone in to developing the business cases for the museum and the library in Broad Street and Maylord, respectively, are both admirable, and I wish them well. I sincerely do. Stop the average person in the street and ask them what they would like out of these projects, and very often I find that. And the comment has already been reflected in this room already, that it's the facade that's so admired in Broad Street, and it's a great reassurance in answer to Councillor Harvey's question that there will be no effect made on that. it's a key component of the listed building, and indeed there will be, as I understand it, no impact on the Woolhope Library, which is sad in a way that it isn't used or hasn't latterly been used as much as we would hope, but in the revamped arrangement, hopefully it will. I mean, I reflect on the fact that the Grosvenor Museum, which is an equally ancient and august institution that is Cheshire's equivalent in Chester, that sadly, in a fit of, in my opinion, misguided short-termism a few years ago, dispersed its library. So we are very lucky to have this great academic collection in the middle of our city, and let's hang on to it and make the best of it. As for the overall scheme, well, yes, very often I'm asked. Well, I asked this question of a passerby, and I said, well, can we have the bees back? Was the answer. Do you remember the Perspex hive that you could watch the bees upstairs, and as I scrambled up a tree to collect a swarm of bees myself the other day, at rather an insensible thing to do at the age of 66, I remember that comment. So that is my little plea. Please, Councillor Davis, can we have the bees back? But no, flippancy aside, it's a great project, and thank you very much for leading it on it, and I wish it well. Thank you, Leader.
Yeah, thank you very much. Councillor Wilding. He's going to start making a sound of a bee in a moment.
I wouldn't do that, Leader. What makes you think I might even consider that? The independents for Herefordshire, of course, are fully in support of these bids, and we congratulate Councillor Davis on pushing these bids forward with as much enthusiasm as she has. So well done, and I really do hope they really do achieve everything that we hope. I mean, I've spent much of my working life before I was a councillor helping to introduce culture and vibrancy into town centres around the world. So I can tell you from personal experience that when you fill a town centre with cultural experiences, you pull people in, and they then create a thriving town centre, and that can snowball. It just needs this push at the start to send it off. So there's no question in my mind that this is what is needed in Hereford. Our town centres are changing. People these days shop more and more online, and what they need, what pulls them into a town centre, is live experiences, things they can't get through their mouse. So I'm totally for all of this, and I know all the independents for Herefordshire are as well. And when it comes to money, I think this is where social value and economic value just sort of mash together. And so these projects, once they're up and running, I believe that the local businesses in the towns will see the benefit. So well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilding. Cass Davis, I'm aware that on some of social media, it's questioning in the library, the new library, taking out the escalators and how that's actually reducing access for older people how are they going to manage to go to the upper floors. Now, if there's anybody who's a champion on in the Council for Equality, it's you. So I'm not quite sure whether you've mentioned that, I can't recall, but whether you want to comment on accessibility to the library for all people, I guess.
Yes, please. A quick news flash. John Coleman has advised me that the bees are still there. He saw them last week. So just so in case anybody was concerned. Regarding their point around equalities, absolutely. And officers have worked throughout the project with me on making sure that they are accessible to all. So when we first started the project, surveys were undertaken that showed that the escalator, so the big escalator in the middle of the shopping centre, is actually at end of life. So what we could do was replace it with another escalator. However, lots of different equality groups say and state that unless it's a fully accessible wheelchair, it can actually cause more problems for those with disabilities. So some of you will have seen escalators that allow a wheelchair to go up on the side. Now, I doubt very much whether or not that would have been the one that we had here because of the space constraints. So actually what we're doing instead is removing the escalator, but creating another lift. So the lift will be accessible from inside the library itself. And the really exciting part from it for me is also about the new toilet that will be downstairs that is disabled access. And if I get my way, a changing places toilet, which would allow for hoists as well. So fingers crossed we will get to that point. But certainly equalities has been at the heart of this project. That's what cultural services does. It breaks down those barriers. So the last thing we want to do is put some more in the way.
Great, thank you to Councillor Davis. So I'll put this recommendation to the cabinet. So recommendation. Well, there are 6 of them. So they're all in the papers. The full business cases, the allocation of additional funding, and authority given to the relevant directors to move on. And again, this is another one which is subject to sign off by central government. Extraordinary amount of work put in. It's one of the great things in the Stronger Towns Fund. Just everybody who's worked on the project. We've got so many people involved in the community. Everybody's tremendously excited. I think looking forward to 4 or 5 years' time, we would have made a difference to the centre of Hereford, and that's going to have an effect on the whole county. Young people, old people, visitors, business, everyone. So it's a tremendously exciting time. Thank you very much. So I'll put it to you. Are you all in favour?
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much. Right. So. Make sure I've got this right. Okay, so I'd like to thank everyone for attending. The next meeting is scheduled for Thursday, the 21st of July. Please can I have confirmation that the live stream has stopped?